My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Today on the Expect Miracles podcast, we have Dr. Alfred Tomp. Dr. Tomp is one of my mentors. I learned so much from him. He's been in a Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractor for 26 and a half years. Gets phenomenal results in his office, and very lucky to have him on the podcast today. Dr. Tomp, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Tomp, you have a little unique story of how you got into upper cervical chiropractic. Do you mind sharing that real fast?
Oh, absolutely. It's not a super fast story, but
I don't know why it's real fast. You can take your time.
No problem. When I was in high school, I was playing football at an all-guys Catholic high school, and I injured my lower back pretty severely, and it just progressively got worse. And it just kept getting worse and worse to the point where I was literally bedridden for about, I believe, 8 weeks.
Jeez.
And my parents took me doctor to doctor. I saw a couple of different orthopedists. I remember trying to get in to see therapists. They actually took me to an acupuncturist, and this would have been in 1980. Lady spoke no English. It was a very interesting experience. I remember the pain dropping, but I still couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And then
literally you couldn't walk, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I needed assistance. I needed assistance to get around, or I crawled. I remember crawling around the upstairs.
Were you like 16 years old at this point?
I wasn't even 16 yet. I was just about 15.
Wow.
Yeah. My aunt had a friend. She was dating him. We're Lebanese, and he was a Lebanese guy, and his name was Dr. George. He practiced up in Hollywood. So my folks still live in the same place in Yorba Linda, and Dr. George practiced at the time up in Hollywood. And he came in on a Saturday night to the upstairs. I'm laying in bed, and he comes in. I mean, I'm not out. I'm not doing anything. I'm literally in bed on a Saturday night. He comes in and looks at me. I think he did a leg check on the floor, and then he said, "We need to get him to the office." So they basically carried me down, put me in the backseat of my mom's car, and drove me out to Hollywood.
That night, huh?
That night. They came out. Yeah, it was actually dark. He came out with an x-ray chair, that chair that we've got, rolled it out, popped me in that thing, took me in the back. I remember the clamps on my head. And by the time he got me on the table and did the adjustment, within a few minutes, the pain started to ease.
Wow.
And I remember laying there and resting for a bit and thinking, man, I could feel my body shifting and changing.
Oh, yeah.
And when stood up, I could actually put my arms above my head, which I hadn't been able to do in months.
Wow.
Just from the pain, because my spine wouldn't go into extension. And when I left the office, I remember grabbing a card and I saw the word chiropractor on the card. I hadn't even seen the word before that.
Yeah.
At age 15. So I told my parents, we've been going to the wrong doctors. We need to go to a chiropractor. Da-da-da. So right next to my dad's office was a chiropractor. I remember going in there, and I remember him taking these big x-rays, like really full spines that I knew now, but I remember them just being really large when I was a kid. And he wanted me to come in there like every day or every other day. I can't remember, but he would come blowing into the room. I remember the ceiling tiles coming up because he came in so fast, and he cranked me one way and the other. And I can remember just laying there in the room going, what am I supposed to do? And then the assistant came in and said, okay, you're done. You can leave. I was like, okay. And literally at the end of the week, which was right after I got adjusted, I remember my leg was starting to drag, and he was because he was doing general manipulation. He was pulling it out of my body, basically. And I told my parents, I go, this isn't it. I go, I got to go somewhere else. I go, this doesn't get me anywhere. So then I went to an activator doctor. Again, another set of films. Man, I had a lot of radiation back then. 3 sets of films.
Yeah.
And one treatment, I'm like, that's not it. We got to see Dr. George. So they carted me up to see Dr. George, and he was like, why did you let anybody touch you? That was basically, he's
no
like,
idea. Why did you? And so I probably didn't hear the education he gave me. He was pretty quiet spoken. And he was practicing an upper cervical technique called Grostic, which is a precursor to Nuka. So he put my atlas back in because it was out again. And about every month I'd have to go up to LA. I could feel the adjustment slip out of my body. I'd go up to LA. It was literally like 70 miles, get my atlas set,
come back. I remember being in college. I'd bring dates up there. Like, come on, we'll go to LA. I'm going to get adjusted. Then we'll go do something, it was a weird experience trying to have a couple drinks and eating a little bit after. My system was just like, it didn't take that very
I don't
well.
like doing that. I like to just do nothing after an adjustment.
It was very interesting. I learned a lot going through that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and for any of the chiropractors out there, in 1988, I was adjusted. So I entered chiropractic school in 1987. I graduated Chapman with a bachelor's in biology and chemistry, then went to Los Angeles College of Chiropractic. There was no upper cervical work there. So my chiropractor said, hey, try to learn some Pedibond because they've got a little bit of that upper cervical analysis. And he said, these are the guys. He pointed me to Ralph Gregory.
Oh, yeah.
And Dick Holtz and Alberti. Those were his mentors. So I was traveling to Monroe, Michigan twice a year.
Really?
Studying while I was in chiropractic school. Yeah, back then we didn't have to track our hours. So I would ditch whenever I could to go study upper cervical because it wasn't being taught there. Mm-hmm. And in 1988, I got adjusted by Dr. Ralph Gregory. He wasn't crazy about Dr. George's listing. And he said he wasn't getting enough torque, apparently not clearing the C2. When he adjusted me, I did feel even a bit clearer. And that adjustment set in my spine for about 2.5 months.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And I also discovered that it was real hard to find a Grostic doctor. So I was getting NUCA adjustments. And I mean, if the NUCA doctor had at least 10 years of experience, that I could kind of hold the adjustment. Dr. George got it better. And Dr. Gregory, they were the only ones that could really kind of get it to hold.
Yeah.
In 1991, my oldest son was born, and he was born with a suction extractor.
Wow.
And I knew his atlas was subluxated from the force of coming down through the canal. And I just didn't have the skill set to clear him. I had taken boards. Mm-hmm. I didn't even have a California license yet.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, hey, there's a guy up in the desert, Dr. Weldon Muncie, who has taken care of thousands of babies.
Yeah.
That's where you should take your son. And I'm like,
he's a legend.
Yes. That's my main mentor was Dr. Muncie. So I went up, took William at 2 months old up there. He took 5 x-rays.
On the baby.
And on the baby. Yeah. Wow. And boom, put his atlas back in place. Colic went away, started sleeping through the night, skin color improved.
Wow.
It was like night and day difference. It was like, wow, this is phenomenal. And so the following week, I went up and I got adjusted by Dr. Muncie. And different than just an atlas, it was a double misalignment on the atlas, and a C3 is what Dr. Muncie cleared. That adjustment, thank God, held in my spine for 13 months.
Wow.
So, and I never felt better. I'm like, this is it. So I'd already learned a bit of Grostic. I was studying NUCA very, very diligently. And I'd also had studied some Atlas orthogonal, which was Dr. Sweat's work. So the orthogonal upper cervical techniques, which was good for me because I could take some of those procedures and bring them forward. Some of the things that you saw in my office were things from the orthogonal system that we moved in that I thought, hey, I like looking at pelvic distortion.
Definitely, yeah.
Position. I think it's helpful to the analysis. So it was good. It was a great part of my journey to be able to experience all that. And from that point forward, I believe for the next 10 years, I took every seminar Dr. Muncie gave. And I used to have to drive like 108 miles from Rancho Santa Margarita to Lancaster, California, one way through LA to get adjusted. I mean, that was literally where I would go.
Now, Dr. Tomp, you mentioned a lot, the adjustments holding and not holding. So where does the healing take place? Is it the adjustment itself, or is it when it stays put?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know you and I have talked about this. So the adjustment doesn't get people better. People always think the adjustment is what gets them better. It's really only when your body is in a state of not needing to be adjusted that it will heal and get better. There's a stimulation that happens from the adjustment. Some people, there's a little bit of endorphin release. So there's a therapeutic benefit, but a spinal correction only happens in a state when your spine is cleared, not needing to be corrected. And that's what separates us upper cervical chiropractors from general chiropractors, is having that concept of, hey, the spine is holding. We're not going to be making any corrections today. It's good news.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very good news when a patient's holding. So, Dr. Tomp, what's interesting about your office, what you kind of just mentioned, is strictly Blair Upper Cervical office, but you also have incorporated all the stuff you've taken with you over the years from the other upper cervical techniques, and you guys get phenomenal. I spent 2 years in your office and I was seeing miracles happen every day. What do you guys attribute that to? People do you see in your office, and what conditions do you see getting better?
Well, there's a few questions in there. A big part of that is really understanding the hold, and patients in our office really do hold well.
Very well.
And that comes from during that 10-year period of time where I was just adamantly trying to perfect my Blair technique and trying to get it better and better and better. Because I knew that these masters, because I was adjusted by Dr. Gregory and by Dr. Muncie, and I knew that if I was going to be anywhere near where these masters were going to be, my upper cervical procedures just had to be precise. They had to be exact. There was no room for error. I mean, I'd go to other upper cervical offices and I'd see a lot of stuff that was sloppy, wasn't exact, it wasn't right on. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. Dr. Muncie used to say, hey, what if it was your wife? What if it was your child? What if it was your parent? So you really want to give every single patient the absolute best care possible to get that adjustment to hold. And what was interesting was after about 10 years of practice, I still had a group of patients that were not holding well. And it was getting frustrating to me. And they were like out every week. And I thought it just wasn't right to me. Because I'd experienced 13-month holding.
Yeah.
When my kids were little, my holding wasn't that great, but it was always better than 3, 4, 5 months. I would hold an adjustment. Currently, thanks to Dr. Hafer, I'm holding like over 5 years.
Oh my God.
Using some of our newest procedures. Yeah. So I started taking that subset of patients that weren't holding well. And I said, well, we're going to stop doing adjustments on you. Because for the longest time, I thought it was me. Like my skill's not good enough. I'm not making good enough corrections. And I realized that a lot of times these joints just get really loose and sloppy and the soft tissues are just not there. And the patient just doesn't have the postural integrity to hold the adjustment. So I asked Dr. Gregory, I asked Dr. Birdie. I remember asking Dr. Muncie several times, how can you strengthen that weakness that's there to get people to hold longer? And the same answer they always came up with, you can't strengthen that weakness. You just can't do it. You try to strengthen it, it's going to resubluxate. You're going to make it more unstable. About 10 years into practice, I came across some guys that were doing this corrective exercise work. And I noticed that subset of patients held better. And I thought, there's a postural component. So obviously if the head's more forward, it's going to put more stress on the spine. They're going to come out of alignment more quickly. So I took that subset of patients that weren't holding well, and I started to do some very specific muscle work on them to get their spines to hold better. So if they had anterior misalignments, we'd get in the front, we'd start clearing those muscles out. So technically, it's not upper cervical work. Dr. Hafer helped really coin it well. It's supportive work.
Absolutely.
And so the work is designed to support the adjustment. So we took that with the patients that weren't holding. All of a sudden, now they're holding a month, 2 months, 4 months, 8 months. It's like, that was exciting. So I started taking those procedures and just applying them across the board. Once we started doing that, everybody started holding so much better. So that's basically what's happened. And we keep testing and refining and trying to get things as exact as possible. Dr. Hafer brought a whole bunch to the practice 10 years ago. She had the concept of bringing some energy work to the upper cervical work.
Yeah.
And she's got a skill set, and going to school at Palmer really was good because you and I both went to LACC. So you understand what that's like.
Absolutely.
So, which is good because we had to go out and really get it. It wasn't given
absolutely.
to us.
Yeah. So, I really had to come to your office if I really wanted to learn it at all.
Right. That's exactly what I did. I hung out in upper cervical offices all the time, just like you did.
Well, and what's funny too is which I think helped me out the most is every time I walked into your office, I would just kind of walk around. You're like, what are you doing? Go look at the x-rays. Your job today is to go look at every single x-ray that walks back because I'm there practicing the adjustment. I'm getting good at my adjustments, but that means absolutely nothing if you're pushing the bone the wrong way or you can't find the misalignment on the x-ray. How important is the x-ray analysis to this work? Yeah,
it's crucial. I mean, the x-ray analysis is crucial. We're describing our work now as that typical chiropractic techniques are very technique-based. So they look at the condition of the spine and it's like, we're going to give you a whole bunch of adjustments. Our work is analysis-driven, so the analysis actually tells us exactly what we're going to do. So we can't make a precise correction unless we know exactly how to make that correction.
Definitely.
I believe Dr. Addington said, he did some research years and years ago, and he said between the misalignments that can occur at C1 and C2, there's over 10 million possible misalignments.
Wow.
And you know that we apply, especially in our office, we go all the way down into the cervical spine if anything is active, all the way down to C7. So that's just specific to that person.
Yeah, definitely. And Dr. Tomp, how does somebody get a misalignment? How do people get sick and fall out of alignment? How does that happen?
Well, now I believe that the initial misalignment is always caused by a physical trauma. It could be something like my oldest son, which was a birth trauma. My other two, thank God, didn't get knocked out from birth trauma. It could be from a fall. I mean, I've got a scar right in the middle of my forehead from and I don't remember this, but when I was little, my dad tells a story. I was running along probably at 2.5, full speed, tripped, fell, the corner of the coffee table cracked me right in the middle of the head. I still have the mark in the middle of my forehead, right? And my dad threw the coffee table away and then got an oval shaped one. So I could bang my head on that thing because it was oval shaped rather than the corner. So, I mean, I think that was my first subluxation. I also saw a birth picture of myself where it looked like, and my mom doesn't remember my birth because back in 1965, I mean, it was like, I think they gassed the moms and pulled us out with forceps. So it was probably knocked out from the birth process. Football, a lot of trauma. I remember getting flashes of light from those head-to-head contact. That being on special teams scared me the most because high speed. Because I know my guy I'm going to hit 50 yards in front of me, and I've got a full head of steam, and he's got a full head of steam, and I'm going to hit him as hard as I can. With the center, and when we were taught, we use the center of the forehead. I don't know what they teach now, but man, I mean, I remember the flashes of light.
Oh, yeah.
So I got concussions. Gosh, car accidents are really big. I mean, we'll re-x-ray our existing patients. They get involved in a big car accident and they're like, oh, we think we're okay. And we look at their bodies and they're in a different position. And then and that position may not be symptomatic until years down the road because they've just realigned or misaligned their entire spine, a lot of times in a totally new pattern. And what we're finding now is that people could be, let's say they're knocked out of alignment as a child. They get into another car accident or something. Let's say at age 16, they've got another totally new misalignment pattern on top of that. And then let's say they take some big concussion or some big trauma later on. So they may have several misalignment patterns kind of buried in on top of that. Mm-hmm. But it's always physical trauma that creates that weakness and that misalignment. Then poor diet, stress, bad posture, being on devices and computers and all that stuff, that aggravates what's already there. Whereas usually that's what makes people symptomatic and they think that's the cause, but the cause is usually a trauma before that. And in my office, like Heather does those phenomenal trauma histories and really digs those out. Yeah. And that's important so that we really know what the patient's gone through before we've gotten to them.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is a physical trauma could cause the actual misalignment or subluxation. After that happens, we put the person back into alignment. Can an emotional stress trigger that and pull that person out of alignment?
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen, especially when people go through like major grief or a major loss. It's not uncommon to slip out then. The way we teach it now and the way we understand it is that we'll put the adjustment back in, but you will lose the adjustment if there is ever a time when your internal resistance is lower than the external force. So 2 examples on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if you're really well rested, you're feeling great, everything is really good, but bang, car accident, it's going to be hard to hold that thing then, right? Or it may create a new one if it's hard enough. Another case, let's say you're a college student, you're studying for finals, you're not sleeping, you run down. Then you sleep wrong on your neck because you're so run down. It doesn't take much force. It'll just slip out.
Gotcha. So oftentimes we see this with a lot of patients. We put them back into alignment. They feel amazing. They're doing great. And then the healing process starts.
Right.
Now, can you explain the healing process, retracing, and what some people experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is that if somebody's been out of alignment for 20 years, or let's say 30 years even, and we get them at age 45 and they've been out of alignment since a car accident, let's say at age 15, 16, what'll happen is that if, let's say they sprained their right knee, they injured their back a few times, the body can't, during the course of this 30-year period of time of being out of alignment, the body can't completely heal when you're out of alignment. The neck goes out, the pelvis shifts. So, and our bodies are masters at adapting. So we're in this compromised position. We get another injury, we all tweak a knee, pull our back from lifting something heavy, whatever it is. The body heals it, but it doesn't quite heal it completely because your body's out. And you've got years of these not completely healed injuries in your body. Once you clear their spine, the body says, wow, this is fantastic. Usually feels really great. Then the next thing you know, it says, hey, it's like it opens up the closet with all the skeletons in there. It's like, oh crap, look at all this shit in here. We didn't heal correctly for all these years. So now all of a sudden, about every 3 months, the body goes in and starts digging that stuff out. And the cool thing is, if you can predict when it's going to happen, you can tell your patients. And it's actually an exciting experience. I mean, people will say, man, I injured this right knee years ago and it wasn't bothering me that much, but now it's just aching and it's been sore because it couldn't heal well because the positioning of the pelvis and the nerve integrity to that knee was not what it should be.
Absolutely.
So that's probably the easiest way to think of retracing. I mean, I think it was originally an observed phenomenon in the B.J. Palmer Clinic because upper cervical work was first developed in the 30s. And they had medical doctors in there examining patients. And then they had BJ and Lyle Sherman and those guys making the corrections. And they were, it was, if you ever watched that, they had them on hospital gurneys and they were taking x-rays on them every 2 weeks. And they were scanning them and they actually could get them clear and they would see these healing responses. So that was the first time they started documenting it.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah. So, Dr. Tomp, does upper cervical have a great effect on stroke patients and some of the neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's? Have you had any experience with that in your office?
Yes, it does help because it helps with cognitive function. I mean, if you look at the work from Dr. Scott Rosa up there, not too far from where you're at, he talks about a normalization of blood flow to the brain when you correct that atlas. Because when the atlas is out of alignment, it's really the head that's not resting properly on the spine. So that alters flow of blood and it also alters flow of spinal fluid through the brain and the CSF. That makes the neurodegeneration just worse. So once you get somebody in alignment, their ability to heal and recover gets better. If someone's like really,
I know it's tough.
The matter, but we do see improvement with that. A lot of times they start to feel better. They can start moving better. If you can get them to start exercising a bit and getting better blood flow to the brain, that always helps with those kinds of cases.
Dr. Tom, you wanted to share a little case study with one of your patients. So what was going on with one of your patients?
Well, I'm like about a year and a half in practice, and my first front office CA refers in her mom to come in, and she's had headaches and neck pain and pain down into her arm and a really pretty severe spine. I take pictures on her. It's one of the worst spines. It was the worst spine that I had seen at that point in time. Huge reversal. I think at the time she was about 42 years old. Huge reversal in the curve. And she had been deaf since age 15.
Wow.
And when I went in and I did that analysis and everything showed up, she had a huge C3, a huge C2, and a huge C1. So misalignments on all top 3 vertebrae. And I was like, let's see what happens, Yeah. So I went in there, corrected all 3 of them, and her hearing was restored right on the spot. Tears were coming down her eyes. Like, I can hear it. And I'm like, it's okay. Just lay and relax. Because I didn't know what to say. And I'm like, I'm thinking a crazy euphoric response. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, just lay. Don't disturb the adjustment, because we rest after the adjustment. And on her next visit, she comes in and she says, oh my God. She says, I was sitting in the back of church. I could close my eyes because she was an expert at reading lips. I could close my eyes and I could listen to the whole sermon.
Oh, man.
Tears are coming down her eyes. She was writing me letters. It was just so exciting. It got picked up by a local newspaper. It's like the Rancho Santa Margarita News. And I guess that article ended up in a lot of chiropractic colleges.
Jeez.
And then so like Dr. Harkins talks about it. So you'll see, like if you read any of his posts, he'll talk about that case. But that was crazy. And literally, I was not in practice longer than about a year and a quarter.
Wow.
So
that's amazing how it came back almost right away, because usually it takes some time for that.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That woman got her life back completely.
Oh, major change in her life. I still see her family, grandkids, great grandkids now.
I'm sure she's requested a ton of people in your office.
Yeah, it's awesome. The other thing too is I've got several patients that come in that tell me that they think they're out of alignment, and I go, well, what is your symptom? And they'll tell me that I can't hear in my right ear. It's gone. And then once I put them back in, the hearing comes back. So I've got multiple cases like that, and you'll get those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a huge epidemic going on right now with Meniere's. I mean, 1 or 2 patients a week come in with the ear ringing, the vertigo, the fullness, headaches, heart racing, all that stuff.
100%.
Blair Upper Cervical does real good work with that as well, right?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we get a lot of Meniere's cases referred in, a lot of dizziness cases, a lot of vertigo, because when that upper cervical spine is not in the right place, that's what happens.
Yeah. And the sad thing about when a Meniere's patient comes into your office, it's not everyone, but a lot of people have said they come in and they're just almost hopeless because they have been told so many times that this is not reversible. You're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. Here's the medication. And not every time is like the first adjustment. It goes away right away, although it does happen. But it could be a wild ride back to health. But we do have really great success with Meniere's patients as well.
Absolutely right, Kevin. Absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, all right, Dr. Tomp. Any other cases you wanted to share?
No, I mean, I've got hundreds of them, but that was one that I thought that you'd find interesting.
I didn't even know that one. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Definitely. So, Dr. Tomp, where are you guys located and where can people find your practice?
We're in South Orange County. So we're basically halfway between LA and San Diego. I've been in Rancho Santa Margarita for, like I said, 26 and a half years. And our website is, well, if you use my name, is easy. It's drtomp.com, drtomp.com. That'll take us to our website with Dr. Hafer, which is blairchiropractors.com. Yeah. Call the office. You can talk with any of the staff there. Heather's usually really good on the phone. She talks with new patients a lot, and she does the initial consult, as you guys know. So, and we take care of all kinds of things. We see a lot of migraine headaches. We've got a few medical doctors sending us migraine cases, which has been pretty exciting.
That's great. Dr. Tomp, if you could just share with the audience one piece of advice that you have taken with you over the years that has really helped you and stuck with you that you would like to share, what would it be? Could be anything.
Well, I remember what Dr. Muncie always used to say, that take care of every patient like is a close family member. Like if this was your wife, if this was your sister, your brother, how would you take care of them? What would you do for them? And that's what you do for all your patients. And that was huge. That was a huge bit of advice. It just made everything easy at that point. Because a lot of times you're worried about getting sued or litigation or all the things they teach you at school, and they put a lot of fear in your head.
Yeah, they do put a lot of fear in you. Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I'm going to take care of you with the best that I can. If this is going on with you, just like you're my brother, if I needed to send you to a medical doctor, I would do that. Whatever I felt would be the best for you is what I'm going to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you take care of people that way, that you'll be able to help the most amount of people.
Yeah. Dr. Tomp, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. Really appreciate it. And really appreciate everything you've done for me. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Awesome, Kevin. Hey, good luck to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tomp. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and leave a review. It really helps boost the podcast and spread the good word. My chiropractic practice is located in West Orange, New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. You can also find us on Facebook at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. All of my information is on my website at drkevinpecca.com, drkevinpecca.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca for podcast episodes, patient testimonials, and educational videos. I have daily affirmations and inspirational quotes on Instagram at Easel Affirmations, EASEL Affirmations. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at drkevinpecca@gmail.com, drkevinpecca@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Cheers.